On now then to the present hour, segment 5, and the great decision. We've spoken about 25 centuries of history. In the history of republics, ancient and modern, how important is the election of 2012?
Wow. Very important. The question is there going to be political liberty 100 years from now? Or is there going to be an administrative order? Think of the European Union and the giving up of sovereignty. And when sovereignty is ceded, it's ceded to Brussels. And what you have in Brussels are administrators. The presumption is the peoples of the various European countries really cannot govern themselves properly, and they must hand everything over to these all-wise administrators, which is what has been happening. It's perfectly Hegelian. Mm-hmm. The same question exists in this country. Are we going to be governed by putatively rational administrators at the center who can decide the shape of our toilets, what kind of light bulbs we have, when we can order books for our classes, minute things in our lives? Can they decide them better than we do? Is it their wisdom that should govern us? Or will that inevitably lead to tyranny in which we are governed by their whimsy, by their anger and their hostility? We have a court case now in which the administration argues that a religious group like the Lutheran Church can't discriminate against heretics by removing a minister from a Lutheran church. Right. Which is to say, religious freedom disappears. There's a reason why why those who believe in God and go to church are concentrated on one end of the political spectrum. They're threatened. And they're threatened by the notion that rational administration will bring us heaven on earth. Look, progressivism is not just a political doctrine, it's a religious doctrine. In the same way that communism was not just a political doctrine, it was a religious doctrine.
Paul, let me give you two quotations. The first is Paul Rahe. All right. This is a couple of years ago, your last appearance on this program. Quote, by the way, I almost fell off my chair when I heard this. Quote, "The election of Barack Obama was a gift to the friends of liberty." That's you. Now here's Wall Street Journal columnist Holman Jenkins. Jenkins wrote a column a couple of weeks ago about Europe, saying that they may make progress here or there, but they're going to be staggering from crisis to crisis. Quote, "Sadly, a similar destiny probably lies ahead for the United States. Only after a series of panics, possibly quite destructive ones, will politicians have leeway to seriously address the unsustainability of the current welfare state. Every move will be too little to ward off another crisis, another showdown, potentially decades of political strife and economic uncertainty await us." Close quote. You want to stick with your original quotation, or are you feeling more Holman Jenkins-y these days?
Well, I've always been with Holman Jenkins.
Oh, you have?
Yes. That is to say, I've always thought that the crisis would come when it became visible that the entitlement state and the administrative state is unsustainable. My view is Barack Obama brought that date forward, especially with Obamacare, which piles more expense on. The notion that it would reduce costs is insane. Nobody believed it at the time. And by behaving in the manner in which he behaved, by shoving things through Congress unread. In other words, you have a situation, there's no public debate on any of these bills. No one got to read them before they voted on them. How could they possibly
Speaker Pelosi said we'll have to enact this to find out what's in it.
What he did is he pulled off the covers of the tyrannical inclinations that lie at the heart of the administrative state. And people saw it. They saw it before their political leaders saw it. The Tea Party is making its move, and the Republicans are still thinking about cooperating with Barack Obama.
Right.
So Barack Obama made us aware as a people of the disaster approaching it, which gives us an opportunity to articulate the argument against the administrative entitlement state and to hold an election over that issue.
Okay. Barack Obama has teed up this election which even against the backdrop of 25 centuries stands out as critical. And what do we have? Mitch Daniels is out. Jeb Bush is out. Haley Barbour is out. Chris Christie's people, according to this morning's news, it sounds as though they're leaking to prepare people that he too will remain out of the race. Mm-hmm. I talked with Michael Barone, our friend Michael Barone, political columnist, a couple of weeks ago, and said, Michael, how would you rate the current Republican field? And he said, not one of the people I would consider the 10 most accomplished and talented on the Republican side in this country is a member of that field. Michael Barone, let me quote to you Michael Barone, a column that Michael wrote a couple of months ago. He's interviewing Paul Ryan. I asked Paul Ryan, congressman from Wisconsin 1st Congressional District and chairman of the House Budget Committee. I asked Ryan if he had read Paul Ray's Ricochet post entitled, yes, Paul Ryan, A Duty to Serve. We now face a great crisis, Ray wrote, and you, Paul Ryan, understand what has to be done better than anyone else. You have a duty to serve. I, Michael Barone, handed Ryan a copy of Ray's post and urged him to read it. He said that he would. As I say, that was Michael Barone last June. Now here's yours truly, Peter Robinson, talking to Paul Ryan just last week. I got an email from Paul Ray, Professor Paul Ray of Hillsdale.
Ricochet, yeah, sure.
You know Paul. And here's what Paul wanted me to read to you. Quote, what an opportunity we have been given, and what will it mean if we waste it? Congressman?
No pressure. Yeah, that clip basically is what I think, how I feel. You know, it's not as if one person is we can do this, and I don't feel like I have to be the vessel on top of the ticket in 2012 to do this. As far as I'm concerned, from the House, we've done a lot to frame this debate. We've done a lot to move this conversation to where it belongs, and we can do more to do that. But just like I said there, you have to have it in your mind, in your heart, in your gut to so badly want to be president, to run effectively forward, and I just don't have that.
Paul?
In Plato's Republic, an argument is made that the people who are the best rulers are the ones who don't want to rule. When I look at the declared candidates, I hold my head in my hands. They want it too much. There doesn't seem to be anyone in the group that can articulate the argument. That's where Holman Jenkins comes in. Mm-hmm. There's a very good chance, and I've thought this from the beginning, and in articles on Powerline and BigGovernment.com and Ricochet, I keep coming back to it. The only thing that can save the administrative entitlement state is the fecklessness of the Republican Party.
Well, I'm sure we'll do our best.
And now, that having been said, what Paul Ryan just said about what he and his colleagues have been doing in Congress is true. And amazing to me. Mm-hmm. Because leadership usually comes from presidential nominees, presidential candidates, governors, people in executive positions or aspiring to executive positions. This is a remarkable moment where the chairman of the House Budget Committee is actually the leader of the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. The reason that I argued he had a duty to run is he's the only one out there. I think Governor Daniels would have been very good, but Governor Daniels had decided not to run. He was the only one out there who was articulating the argument. Last night at Hillsdale College, you gave a talk on the rhetoric of Ronald Reagan, mm-hmm. and you showed a series of clips from his speeches. What struck me about those clips is he was always returning to first principles,
Yes.
always returning to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and our form of government and the success of our form of government to judge current policies. Paul Ryan does that. None of the other people who appear on the stage in these debates really does that, and does it in a credible way. So my fear is we will nominate someone who will probably defeat Barack Obama, and then the Republicans will return to their post-1932 pattern. The Democrats vote gigantic new programs, and the Republicans come in and clean things up and make sure the taxes get raised to support those programs.
Right.
The role of Eisenhower, the role of Nixon, the role of the first Bush, the role of the second Bush with his prescription drug program and No Child Left Behind. The Republicans are sort of the sober managers of the administrative state, and the Democrats are the crazy managers of the administrative state. And I believe that this is equivalent to moving the deck chairs around upon the Titanic.
Paul, last question before we take a moment to entertain questions from our audience. Last question. You said the question, early in the program, you said the question is whether this country will remain a country of liberties a century from now. Now, you and I are in good health, but neither of us will see the moment. These students of yours will come closer to doing so.
Yes.
So here we have been talking about things which, let's face it, are a little depressing. You've gone from saying 2 years ago, Barack Obama is a gift to the Friends of Liberty, to saying, gee, I look at the current Republican field and it's not impressive.
Friends of Liberty aren't up to the job.
The Friends of Liberty aren't up to the job. Exactly. The Friends of Liberty are like Paul Ryan, staying home and rooting for the Green Bay Packers. So what 2 lines of advice would you offer to an 18 or 19-year-old Hillsdale student who's looking at, say, Paul Rahe, one of my most esteemed professors, is saying, fundamentally, the country in which I am about to embark, bright and cheerful and with the benefit of a Hillsdale education, about which I am about to embark on my life and career, is going to hell.
My advice to them would be to go into public life, to take what they've learned at Hillsdale and articulate it in the public arena. It could be that we will miss 2012 as an opportunity, but as Holman Jenkins pointed out, the old progressive era is coming to an end. The administrative entitlement state eats its seed corn, and you can see this with Social Security. We aren't having enough children to support people in the manner in which Social Security is supposed to support people. The crisis, if it is not faced up to in 2012, it will be faced later.
The crisis is upon us.
The crisis is upon us, and it's not going to go away. You might be able to move things around and put it off for a few years, but then it'll creep back upon us. If there is not fundamental reform, bankruptcy will threaten us time and again. And there's no escaping from reality. You know, Margaret Thatcher said, sooner or later you run out of other people's money. Mm-hmm. We're in a worse situation. Sooner or later you run out of other people's children. Because there aren't going to be enough people working to support this structure for people who are retired. And it is a brute fact. Now, Paul Ryan will still be around.
Paul Ryan's only 41.
Right. So if we fail in 2012, there may be another opportunity. Now, I doubt we will ever see another Democrat who puts things in as stark a terms as Barack Obama. Think about it. We are in the middle of a terrible economic downturn, the worst since the Great Depression. Barack Obama has himself said the worst thing you could possibly do is raise taxes in such circumstances, and now he is proposing to raise taxes in such circumstances.
Right. Paul Rahe, holder of the chair in the Western Heritage at Hillsdale College and the author of a number of books, including Republics Ancient and Modern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
I'm Peter Robinson for Uncommon Knowledge. Thanks for joining us.